Inside your spotlight this morning, we bring some more awareness to adoption and foster care, as September is Adoption and Foster Care Awareness Month. This morning, I want to welcome the Acting Manager of Foster Care at the Children's Authority, Anjali Tiwari Difaj. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Now Morning Show. How are you doing this morning?
Good. Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about what foster care is.
So foster care, a lot of people don't know about foster care. And when you say foster care, people associate it with adoption always. So I want to start with the difference between foster care and adoption. Foster care is a temporary care option. So if a child is found in need, abandoned, sort of in need of protection, we can place a child temporarily with a family. So that's a safe family option that we've checked, we've vetted, but adoption is actually a permanent care option. So that means we've gotten consent to remove a child from their birth family and place them permanently with an adoptive family. So they're both very different.
Yeah.
In foster care, we are actively trying to build capacity with the birth families to determine whether we can place that child eventually back with them. So foster care is really sort of that safe space, that loving home environment where that child can still prosper while we do that work in the background.
So tell me a situation where you would have a child that would end up, or you would want to place a child in foster care that has the birth parents, and you said you're working with the birth parents, right?
Yes.
So give me an example of a situation like that so people can be very clear on it.
So, for example, if it is that we find a child abandoned late at night,
Right.
we get a call in foster care, we determine where that child would be best placed based on preferences of our foster parents. We place that child temporarily because we've not been able to find any family members, any safe space for them. But then that gives us some time to do further investigations. Say we then locate birth parents or birth families, but maybe they need a little bit of help. Maybe they have housing issues or employment issues, or maybe they have mental health issues that need some assistance. We then have some time to give that family support once they're willing to accept that support from us and work with us. That case then becomes, that child becomes a part of the Children's Authority, and we look after their needs in the interim while we work with the family alongside. So it's really a sort of a side-by-side process, but it really does involve the families working with us.
And how long does that process take, Jen? Is there like a minimum time that you say, all right, we definitely know we have to work with the family for this amount of time before we can even think about putting them back in the birth family?
So that's a really good question, because sometimes you think it's very clear-cut, but when a child comes into care, many things can happen. You may think it's one issue, but you go into that family and there's lots of dysfunction, lots of support that's needed. And it really is, sometimes you think it's an overnight fix, but it takes a lot longer because it's so many years of things not working out. So it can be, foster care can actually be as short as one night, where we are able to find a different family member maybe,
Right.
or it can be a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a couple of years. It really does depend on the case. And sometimes children actually stay in foster care until they're 18 and age out of care, all depending on the circumstances. But it does not mean that a family isn't still involved.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the important thing to realize, that if a child comes in foster care, we are still promoting those bonds with their family, making sure they still have that sense of belonging to their birth families.
What is the response like from children who've been in foster care and then sent back to their birth parents? Are there situations where, because I imagine, the change of environment, I imagine it'll be two different environments, whether drastically or minor differences, but it'll be different environments that they would have gotten accustomed to the foster care, even though it's temporary, and now they're moving back home. What sort of impact would that change have on the children?
So I think we try to make it very clear to children from the start, the foster parent isn't a replacement for their birth family. So we are doing supervised visits alongside, making it very clear that the home address, the contact information of the foster parents are kept confidential always. So we do supervise access, we continue those bonds, so that we're sort of preparing that child for that hopeful eventual reunification. It doesn't always happen, but we are sort of prepping them and sort of preparing them for that, so they're very aware that this is their foster home, a temporary home, and they may potentially go back. And a lot of kids are very understanding that sometimes they say that they have two mommies or two daddies, but most children are very happy to go back home, depending on the circumstances. It all really depends. If a child was subject to abuse, we would never place a child back into a space of danger. So we have to do our relevant checks, and we would only place a child back with their families where it was appropriate and in the best interest of the child.
Are there different types of foster care?
Yes. So there's primarily with traditional foster care. That's where the member of the public can volunteer. I would like to be a foster parent. I'm really interested in taking care of children. And we approve them. And there's emergency foster care. So that's 1 night up to 2 weeks. Short-term or medium foster care, which can go up to 6 months. So we're actively working with the families. And then there's long-term foster care. We really don't know what that time frame is, and it could really expand till the child ages out. And then there's also respite foster care. So if a foster parent has to travel, has any medical issues, they can place that child with another foster parent temporarily, as well as specialist foster care for those types of special needs children. And lastly, and very importantly, is kinship foster care. We recently approved kinship foster care, and I'm very excited about this because this gives us the right to place a child with other family members. So according to our legislation, we can place a child with a relative other than a parent, so perhaps a step-parent, a grandparent, aunt, uncle, brother, sister, blood, or whole blood or half-blood. So it gives us a chance to keep a child within their own families as opposed to going to a traditional foster parent.
But you mentioned earlier that you could have put the children with another family member if you found them or whatever the case may be, right? But now that you mentioned the legality of it, what does that actually mean does it mean you get the stipend that goes with it and all that good stuff?
So the difference being, and I'm glad you asked that question, because when a child initially comes to attention of the authority and needs to be placed, we look at other family members. If they're willing, able, there's no child protection concerns, they don't need any support, we can place that child with a family member easily. But then if it is that there's other concerns and they need to have that sort of legal coverage as well as that additional support, such as the foster care stipend and training and sort of that hand-holding, then we would approve a relative as a kinship foster parent.
Okay, tell me what the process is like to be approved on that list of foster care parents or possibilities.
So the most important thing, we ask persons to have love in their hearts. They have to have an open heart and an open home, because children will pick up on this. You know, you have to be doing it for the right reasons. So we ask for you to have a safe home, supportive family members and relatives and, you know, sort of friends. You need that support network.
Community.
Yes. You would also need to, we do in-depth interviews with all members of the household. We do background checks. We ensure that you do a medical to make sure there's no medical needs that would get in the way. We do psychometric tests. We do references. And we also do basic training. So it is a thorough process, but we don't want that to put people off. We want persons to understand the reason it's so thorough is because we want to make sure we're placing children from a space of danger into a safe space.
And you mentioned training. What sort of training do you guys provide?
So when a foster parent is initially approved, before we place a child with them, we do some basic training with regards to things like child protection, child development, behavior management, safety of the home. We really want persons to be at a level playing field. Some persons may have had kids before, but others may never have had a kid in their care. So we want to make sure foster parents are approved to a certain level and then trained to a certain level, and then once they are approved, we continue to provide ongoing training to them.
Is it less thorough for folks who would have had children before?
No. Same process. With regards to kinship foster parents, there is a slightly shortened version of the process because they sometimes already have children in their care, but they desperately need that support. So we would approve them based on the minimum criteria and then do ongoing things after that.
All right. Tell me about the push towards deinstitutionalization.
So I think in the Caribbean and in Trinidad and Tobago, historically, we have a habit of if a child has issues in the home, if there's any sort of child protection concerns, we automatically place a child in a children's home. And whilst I must acknowledge that children's homes do play a role in our society, internationally, we are moving more towards placing children in family environments, and that's why foster care is so important. We really want to sort of focus on placing children with that family, sort of that safe space, that individualized care, and they really do thrive better in a family environment. So the hope is that eventually we match up to best practice countries, and we have less children's homes and more types of alternative placement like foster care, like adoption.
That's very interesting because for me, in my head, when I think of the children's homes, I think of people like Roy Cape who would have passed through that institution like that, and they had that bond of having more people in the community. So you're saying that the way the world is going now, we prefer the family institution as compared to the extended family or the whole institution.
Absolutely, yeah. So basically, in Trinidad and Tobago, we do have this culture of taking children in. What we're trying to do now is we're really trying to encourage families to step up and do it formally, to sort of get approved, to be checked, and make sure we're doing the right thing thing.
And tell me why that's important. Why is it important to get the families approved?
Because in the past, many people take children in, and sometimes we don't know a lot of abuse does take place in the homes by people that children know. So we want to make sure that people check out, we have those checks and balances, people are being monitored and supported. And just to be clear, not every family member needs to come through the kinship process.
Right.
You do have to meet certain criteria. So if it is that financially you're able, you don't need that training and support, we may approve you as a different type of care option. There are fit person options, there are family options, but kinship is really if for those family members who need that support in order to provide care for children.
All right. And in terms of the skills required to be a foster parent, I mean, you mentioned having love in your heart. You mentioned, having the village around you, the community around you. What are the skills do you think persons should have in order to say, well, yes, I'm equipped to at least start the process?
I think absolutely. People need patience and empathy. I think any parent needs patience, right? And I think I really want to stress that we can't expect perfect children. We are not perfect, and these kids have been through so much, more than we could even imagine.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for foster parents to understand that. So when these children are acting out, it's not a personal thing. It's not against you. They miss their families. It's wrong what was done to them in some circumstances. So it's that empathy and understanding that we will give you that training and support to get through this, whether it is a child needs therapeutic intervention or any additional support. We will put those things in place. And that's something I really want to stress. The foster care unit holds the hands of foster parents through the process. We are there to support you. So a caseworker is assigned to you. In addition to the training, we provide counseling, we provide psychoeducational support. So there's lots of other supports that we can give to a foster parent. We're not leaving you in this on your own. We're really creating that team around the child.
Yeah, I think it's really important to stress that, because people might wonder, if I sign up and I get through and then, all right, they leave me out in the wilderness and I have this child who end up being, problematic at times and are trying to get through the process. What sorts of encouragement would you give to persons who are currently foster parents and, they might be getting ready for the first week of school and the child is not having it. The child is not ready for school, or they're nervous for school, or they're scared for school, or they're not having a good first week. What sort of advice would you give to those foster parents?
So what I want to say first is I want to thank our foster parents. Taking this opportunity, they are amazing. Sometimes I have to call them up late at night to place an abandoned child, and they don't ask age, gender, race, nothing. They just say, Ms. Tiwari, bring them. And that really sort of warms my heart to know that we have so many persons out there willing to open their hearts and homes. So I want to thank our foster parents, big thank you to them. And I want to encourage them, they're doing amazing work. And whilst I know it's hard, because part of foster care is saying goodbye and being able to say goodbye sometimes, I think it's important to know that even though you may be in this child's life for a short period, you're making such a significant difference. So I really do want to stress that.
Yeah. I think it's very important for us to realize the impact that we can have, each and every one of us, by just simply signing up for it. So if people want to get in contact and they want to sign up to be a part of foster care, becoming foster parents for children, Sally, how can they sign up?
So first, I really would advise persons to give us a call and chat about whether this is for you. So give us a call on 627-0748, and you can get the foster care unit on extension 40988, or you can email us at fostercare@ttchildren.org, or check out our website at www.ttchildren.org, where you can find out about foster care, kinship foster care, adoption. You can download the application packages there as well.
Is there a fee to sign up to become a foster parent?
No fees, just love in your heart.
It sometimes can be a pretty big fee.
Yes.
And if people want to make a report about child abuse and any kind of mistreatment of children or anything like that, how can they reach you guys?
So you can contact our hotline on 996 or 800-2014. If you have any concern about a child in need of care and protection, give us a call.
Anjali, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, no problem. Can you just point out any other ways that you guys are going to be celebrating or making that awareness more public for this month?
So as usual, we are going to be doing our media rounds and getting the word out there, because still persons don't know about foster care. And we also want to reach out to our partner agencies and do some sort of education series with them, because we want to make sure that when we have cases coming to our partner agencies, they can refer them appropriately to Children's Authority.
So thank you so much for coming on this morning and sharing with us.
Thank you.
And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks a lot.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's Anjali Tiwari-Defage, foster care manager, acting foster care manager at the Children's Authority, just sharing with us some information about foster care and how you can be a part of the process. Head on across to the website, get the information, give them a call, get some more information as well. We take a quick break and we come back with more. Stay tuned.